In March of 2026, Google quietly finalized a check for $32 billion.
Which is just a massive, massive amount of money.
Right. I mean, it is the single largest purchase in the entire history of the company. It completely dwarfs their acquisitions of, Motorola, YouTube, DoubleClick, all of them.
Yeah, but the crazy part is what they bought.
Exactly. Because they didn't buy a flashy new robotics firm. They didn't buy some revolutionary generative video algorithm. They bought the digital equivalent of a chain link fence.
A very, very expensive fence.
Yeah. Welcome to the deep dive, everybody. We are jumping straight into the sources today because the race to dominate artificial intelligence, well, it's fundamentally changed. For you, for me, for anyone watching this space.
Yeah, the era of fighting over glossy chatbots is pretty much over.
Completely over. The tech industry is now engaged in this, trillion-dollar war for unseen, totally unglamorous critical infrastructure.
And it's a profound pivot in corporate strategy, really, because to understand the technology you are interacting with today, you have to look past the user interface.
Right. You have to examine the supply chain that powers it.
Exactly.
And to map out that supply chain for you today, we've pulled together a massive stack of documents. We're talking corporate strategy, academic research, the works.
We're looking at the official financial disclosures from Google Cloud and Scale AI, right?
Yep, and we've got market analysis from Reuters, Forbes, and Bloomberg. Plus, to really anchor the business moves in actual computer science, we're drawing from peer-reviewed papers published by MIT, Nature Machine Intelligence, and the IEE.
It's a lot of material.
It is. But our mission for you today is pretty simple. We want to decode how the AI war became an infrastructure war. And we're going to do that by analyzing two seismic industry-altering deals.
That's Google's acquisition of Wiz and Meta's colossal investment in Scale AI.
Right. But before we get into the money, setting the timeline here is essential.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is June 2026. And the AI market has really matured out of its experimental phase.
Like way out of it.
Yeah. A few years ago, the industry was obsessed with just proving that a large language model could even function.
Right, like, hey, look, it can write a poem, or it generated a coherent image.
Exactly. But today, the foundational technology is proven. The bottleneck is no longer the algorithm itself. Big tech companies are fighting an existential war for clean training data, impenetrable cloud security, and exceptional human talent.
Because those are the resources that actually determine who controls the future of computation.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's start with Google. Their DNA has, always been about organizing and securing the network. So it kind of makes sense that they're making their biggest play in defense.
Yeah, because a state-of-the-art AI model is just a massive liability if it's vulnerable to theft or sabotage.
Which takes us to that $32 billion check.
Mm-hmm.
So between the initial announcement in March 2025 and the finalization earlier this year, Google acquired Wiz.
That's the Israeli-founded cloud and AI security platform.
Right. And $32 billion is a staggering valuation.
Yeah.
But to justify it, the financial analysis really points to Wiz's specific capability. They can scan highly complex multi-cloud environments in a matter of minutes.
And that speed and breadth is just a monumental technical achievement.
How so? Like, for the everyday user, what does that mean?
Well, most enterprise networks today, they don't live on a single server anymore. A company might host its user database on, say, Amazon Web Services, but then run its AI analytics on Google Cloud Platform and maybe manage its internal directories through Microsoft Azure.
Oh, wow. So it's all over the place.
Exactly. Securing that fragmented landscape is notoriously difficult.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second because understanding how Wiz actually does this is crucial. Most traditional security software requires you to basically install a tiny program, an agent, on every single server or virtual machine you want to protect, right?
Right, the traditional agent-based model.
Yeah. It's like having to install a physical lock on every single door, window, and cabinet in a massive skyscraper.
And if you forget one window...
boom, you're compromised. But Wiz bypasses that entirely. It connects directly to the cloud provider's master API. It essentially grabs the architectural blueprint of the entire multi-cloud environment and scans the building from the outside in.
Finding the misconfigurations in the exposed databases almost instantly.
Right. But here is my genuine pushback on this. Okay. We are talking about Alphabet, Google. They have literal armies of the best software engineers on the planet.
They do.
I just struggle to believe that they couldn't just build an agentless API scanner themselves. I mean, Google is notorious for buying highly valued companies, getting them bogged down in internal bureaucracy, and eventually shutting them down.
Ah, the Google graveyard.
Yes. So what makes a $32 billion security layer immune to the Google graveyard?
Well, what's fascinating here is that Google isn't just buying the code, they are buying the industry standard before anyone else can lock them out of it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the research published in Security and Privacy highlights a critical reality. Something like 80 to 90% of all breaches in modern environments happen specifically at the cloud level.
Wow, that high.
Yeah.
Hey.
Hackers don't usually break down the front door of the AI model. That's too hard. They find an obscure, misconfigured Amazon server, get inside, and move laterally across the network.
Just sneaking through the side door.
Exactly. And if an attacker gains access to the cloud environment hosting an AI, they can execute something called an extraction attack.
An extraction attack.
Yes. They aren't just stealing user data, they're stealing the proprietary weights.
Okay, I want to pause on that term for you because proprietary weights is really the key to this whole defensive strategy. Think of it like this. If the raw data is the textbook and the training algorithm is the student studying, the weights are the actual learned knowledge inside the student's brain.
That's a great analogy.
Right. So if a rival company or, a state-sponsored hacker steals your model's weights, they've effectively stolen billions of dollars of computation and research.
They get the finished, highly intelligent brain without having to spend a single dollar on training it themselves.
Which is terrifying for a company like Google.
And that threat changes the whole economic calculus for them. They realized that to secure their own AI investments, just securing the Google Cloud was insufficient.
Because, as you said, their clients' environments are totally intertwined across AWS and Azure.
Right. A breach in a competitor's cloud could compromise a model hosted on Google's infrastructure.
Ah, so Google bought Wiz to establish a ubiquitous security perimeter that covers the entire digital neighborhood, not just their own property.
Exactly. They paid $32 billion to ensure they are the ones policing the cross-cloud borders.
Okay, so while Google bought the vault, Meta went out and bought the gold.
The offensive play.
Right, because security of the infrastructure is paramount, but an impenetrable AI fortress is completely useless if the intelligence inside it is learning from degraded information.
Which shifts our deep dive from a defensive posture to an incredibly aggressive offensive strategy.
So let's talk about the fuel.
Offense in the current landscape is entirely dictated by the quality of the training material. I mean, you can scrape the open internet for text and images, but that raw information is chaotic, contradictory, and honestly, often inaccurate.
So back in June 2025, Meta moved to solve that problem. They spent approximately $15 billion to acquire a 49% stake in Scale AI.
And Scale AI is huge.
Massive. The financial breakdowns from Bloomberg position Scale as the absolute authority in data curation and labeling. As a strategic bonus, Scale's CEO, Alexander Wang, agreed to simultaneously lead a newly formed superintelligence lab inside Meta.
It is really difficult to overstate how critical that curation process is.
Why is that?
Because as AI models become more advanced, they literally exhaust the supply of high-quality, publicly available human text.
They run out of internet to read.
Basically, yeah. To get smarter, they require highly specialized, perfectly categorized information, whether that's complex mathematical proofs, nuanced legal reasoning, or perfectly annotated medical imaging.
And Scale AI provides the refinement necessary to make that raw data digestible for a sophisticated neural network.
Exactly.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Look at the surgical legal structure of this acquisition. Meta did not buy the company outright.
No, they didn't.
They bought 49% using specifically non-voting shares.
Which is just a brilliant, aggressive legal maneuver.
Totally. By keeping their ownership under 50% and stripping their shares of voting power, Meta technically leaves Scale AI as an independent entity.
Right, under the Hart-Scott-Rodino Act and various antitrust frameworks.
Yeah, this structure allows Meta to completely bypass the brutal, multi-year regulatory scrutiny that a full acquisition would trigger from the FTC or the Department of Justice.
It is a textbook evasion of monopoly classifications while still reaping all the strategic benefits.
Let me put it in perspective for you. Think of Scale AI as the world's most elite industrial kitchen. They are sourcing the rarest ingredients, chopping the vegetables, creating the foundational sauces that every top-tier AI restaurant needs to serve a good meal.
I love that.
By using non-voting shares, Meta can just tell the regulators, hey, we don't own the kitchen. We have no say in how it operates.
We're just investors.
Right. But By pouring $15 billion into it, Meta guarantees themselves a VIP pipeline to the absolute best ingredients the kitchen produces. Meanwhile, Scale's other major clients, which historically include direct Meta competitors like Microsoft and OpenAI, they're suddenly looking at their supply chain and wondering if their access to those premium ingredients is going to be quietly throttled.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the reason Meta is willing to spend $15 billion on a supply chain becomes very clear.
The flywheel.
Yes, it revolves around a structural engineering concept called the data flywheel. Studies presented at major machine learning conferences like NeurIPS break down the mechanics of this loop.
How does it work?
Well, when you train a model on high-quality human-labeled data, the model performs better. Because it performs better, it attracts more users. And those users generate more unique edge case queries.
Just to clarify, an edge case being like a weird, complex prompt that the AI hasn't seen before, which causes it to stumble.
Precisely. When the AI stumbles, that specific interaction is flagged, sent back to a service like ScaleAI, manually corrected by a human expert, and fed back into the next training run.
So it learns from its mistakes.
Right. The AI gets smarter, attracts even more users, and generates even better edge case data. That is the flywheel. It generates its own momentum.
Wow.
And the consensus in the academic community is that establishing an insurmountable data flywheel is the only viable path to artificial general intelligence.
Meaning a system that can outreason the human across every cognitive domain.
Yes. Meta is not just stockpiling current data. They are capturing the engine that produces future intelligence.
Which pulls back the curtain on a reality that the tech industry rarely advertises. We constantly think of artificial intelligence as this pristine, autonomous synthetic brain. But when you dissect the reports from MIT and Nature Machine Intelligence, you see the actual mechanics of how Scale AI solves those edge cases.
It's a very human process.
Very human. They use a process called reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF.
RLHF is really the bridge between raw computation and human logic.
And requires an army. Scale AI's $15 billion valuation is fundamentally built on a sprawling global network of gig workers.
Tens of thousands of human beings.
Sitting at screens worldwide, reading those failed edge case prompts, manually writing the correct response, tagging the logic, and feeding it back to the machine. The sheer paradox of the AI revolution is that the illusion of infinite machine intelligence is currently sustained by grueling, repetitive human labor.
It's quite the irony.
And beyond the gig workers, Meta also secured Alexandra Wang. They essentially siphoned one of the most capable executives in the independent tech sector directly into their walled garden.
And this raises an important question about structural fragility.
How so?
When you synthesize the Google and Meta deals, you start to see the formation of a highly concentrated ecosystem. From a systems engineering perspective, centralization creates single points of failure.
Oh, like a cybersecurity monoculture.
That is the exact risk the MIT researchers outline. I mean, think about it. If 80% of the enterprise world adopts Wiz because Google has made it the default standard, security becomes a monolith.
Okay, but it's highly advanced security, right?
Yes, it is highly advanced. But if a state-sponsored actor discovers a zero-day exploit, a flaw that Wiz hasn't noticed yet, they haven't just compromised one target. They have a master key to the entire global infrastructure.
Oh, that's terrifying.
And the same principle applies to the data pipeline. If everyone relies on Scale AI's specific methodologies for reinforcement learning from human feedback, any systemic categorization error or logic flaw introduced by their labelers will ripple across the entire industry.
Oh, I see. You end up with a dozen competing AI models that all share the exact same blind spots because they were fed from the exact same industrial kitchen.
Exactly.
It is the tech equivalent of agricultural monoculture. Right. Like if you only plant one type of crop, a single specific disease can wipe out the entire harvest.
But Google and Meta seem perfectly willing to accept that risk, provided they are the ones who own the farm.
Wow.
They are executing a classic infrastructure capture strategy. We saw this in the late 19th century with Standard Oil and the railroads. The ultimate control doesn't belong to the company extracting the resource. It belongs to the company that owns the pipelines and the train tracks.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Let's distill the landscape as it stands today, in June 2026. We're witnessing two distinct, deeply calculated strategies to capture the AI supply chain.
Two sides of the same coin.
Right. Google recognized that multi-cloud architecture is the soft underbelly of the digital economy, so they deployed $32 billion to buy Wiz. They aren't just securing their own servers. They are establishing a ubiquitous, agentless security perimeter that polices the data moving across their competitors' clouds as well.
And on the other side, Meta identified that high-fidelity human feedback is the ultimate bottleneck for algorithmic growth.
Yep. They utilized a brilliant non-voting share structure to bypass antitrust regulators, deploying $15 billion into Scale AI. They secured preferential access to the data flywheel without taking on the legal burden of a full acquisition.
The battleground has fundamentally shifted.
It has. The winners of the AI revolution won't be the companies that write the cleverest code. The winners will be the entities that own the economic and physical reality that the code requires to function.
And, while that level of corporate consolidation introduces profound systemic vulnerabilities, there is a tangible upside for the end user.
I was hoping we'd get to some good news.
Well, when trillion-dollar companies upgrade the underlying plumbing of the internet to this degree, the tools available to developers and the public become exponentially more reliable.
So fewer errors.
Exactly. We are transitioning out of a period where AI was prone to hallucination and unpredictable logic. By securing the data pipelines and locking down the hosting environments, the industry is delivering utility-grade superintelligence.
That's a great way to put it. Utility grade.
You are going to see platforms that are incredibly resilient, highly accurate, and integrated into complex workflows with a level of safety that was just impossible during the experimental phase.
The outputs get sharper, the security gets tighter, and the tools become an invisible, reliable part of daily life.
Exactly.
But as we close out this deep dive, there is a broader implication you should consider. If Meta has successfully cornered the market on the premier data curation supply chain, and Google has successfully captured the baseline for multi-cloud security, what is the reality for the next generation of innovators?
That's the billion-dollar question.
Right. What happens next year when a group of independent researchers creates an algorithm that is genuinely superior to anything big tech has built? Will that startup be able to compete on its own merits? Or are we quietly building a system of digital feudalism? A future where any brilliant new company, just for the right to exist and operate safely, is forced to pay a data tax to Meta and a security tax to Google. Keep an eye on the supply chain, because the unseen infrastructure being built today is going to dictate the boundaries of innovation for decades to come.